This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And a quick take. I ask questions. I just been monitoring the media platform or media scene. I've been asking myself, is it all that bleak and gloomy in this country? Even in the wake of the chief imam doing that exemplary show of tolerance as far as religion is concerned, and the celebration by the Otumfuo Asantehene of his anniversary on the throne, we are still, as it were, buzzing with what they say bleeds. And in journalism, they say when it bleeds, it leads. But are there not good stories worth celebrating in this country? So this morning, my take, I simply have been asking questions about whether or not it is not possible for us to throw the floodlight on what is working and encourage a lot more of what is working. There's a lot of bashing of government people, and government agencies. And of course, they are easy targets because, as we know, 101, or very basic, simple, rudimental, fundamental journalism school, you'll be taught that portion of the law that the government or its agencies have no right at law to sue you for defaming them or anything of that sort. So we keep throwing all the debt at the institutions and the government because they cannot answer back through lawsuits. The least they can afford themselves may be through Article 162, where the Constitution provides that there could be a rejoinder that they will do, and the media will be, as it were, will be obliged to give vent. I mean, in chapter 12 of the Constitution, that's what I mean. In chapter 12 of the Constitution, when you say things about people and they don't like them or they are inaccurate, they have a right of rejoinder. And when they send the rejoinder to the media entity, you have an obligation imposed on you by law to also publish their rejoinder. Beyond that, it does appear the states and the state agencies do not have any other right to take you on any front. But I say, despite that, we ought to be concerned about our own integrity, our own credibility, that if it were individual citizens, they could sue for defamation, and if they win, they could get damages. But the fact that the state or its agencies do not have that right does not mean you can go on and just churn out anything. You must also think about your own integrity and credibility. In fact, even when people have sued and the defendants appear to have a right in law and even in fact to defend themselves, there are times when you look at certain ethical principle considerations and say, it's okay to say, I'm sorry, I didn't get it right. So let's take note of that. Our own credibility and integrity must also be important. Thank you. That's just by way of my take this morning. And my guests are seated, and we get to look at the issues for this morning. And my guests this morning are regular panelists. Abdul Malik Kwekubako is editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. And here also in the studio is Kofi Bento. He's vice president, Imani Africa. He's a legal practitioner. And Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa. He's MP North Tongue and he's ranking member Foreign Affairs. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us in the studio.
Thank you, Thompson.
On the phone, we'll be joined by some experts, particularly on the issue of the Aker Energy and the 30 billion that Ghana may be giving away if it doesn't act correctly. But is that truth? And has Imani actually goofed on that matter? We will deal with all of those right away. So let's begin. And we start with Yao Osafo Maafo. His issue doesn't seem to go away. It doesn't seem it will go away anytime soon. And what is his issue? You're clearly aware that when the Attorney General entered a nolle prosequi and took out the case against Aisha Huang, as she's called, the Chinese Galamsey Queen, who was leading a illegal mining in such a way that devastated our reserved forest reserve, and water in such a way that had monumental future implications. When the Attorney General entered the nolle prosequi, and by law is allowed to do so without reason, she didn't give any reason. But the minister, senior, superintending over all other ministers, I suppose, has given a reason. Is that reason the reason? That's the questions being asked. Senior citizens, including Okudzeto, have asked questions that the discretion was wrongly exercised in freeing her instead of prosecuting her. There have been pressure groups that are asking that government must come clean and at least dissociate itself with Osafo Maafo. If it will not, as it were, sack him, what can citizens get? Let me start with you, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Perhaps you are the one we haven't heard on this matter so far, at least on this platform. The minority has a take, we are aware, yes, including a suggestion of impeachment of sort. Some say that's taking it too far. What do you say?
Thank you, Samson, and good morning to you, to the panel, and to all our distinguished viewers and listeners across the globe. Permit me to also add my voice and congratulate the Chief Imam who turned 100 this week. Great leader. I've always wondered what will have happened in this country so far as interreligious tolerance, interfaith cooperation is concerned if we did not have such an exceptional religious leader in Dr. Nuhu Sharabutu. So we thank Allah for giving him long life. He is certainly a man who deserves to live very, very long. And I pray that he will continue to be with us in strength, in good health, and his exemplary leadership. I was quite disappointed that when he called on the Christ the King Church, some few members of his own faith, did not really find it comfortable. But certainly, change agents, dynamic leaders, it takes time for their followers to appreciate what they are doing. Right. And let us remember that that very hour, that same moment, he was showing the world such great example. In Sri Lanka, intolerant, terrorists had targeted churches, right, bombing them. Over 400 people have died. So I put out a tweet that the world has something to learn from Ghana, right? And
I suppose that's why the BBC gave the Imam's visit to the Christ the King Chapel.
Yes, such prominence.
Such prominence,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, and it was great. It put Ghana in very good light, right? And things like that are really inspiring, very refreshing. Okay. And obviously, I want to also congratulate Nana Otum for 32, the second
20th anniversary.
On the 20th anniversary, another great leader.
From the revelations, he too, without him, brokering some of the peace and the quiet. We don't know where this country may have been.
Yeah. So we wish them well, and may the good Lord continue to protect them for and on behalf of the state of Ghana. Now to our first topic, Samson. I want to situate my take on this under Article 73 of the Constitution, which guides our international relations. And as ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, we are always reminded by this provision. And Article 73 is very clear. It states that the government of Ghana shall conduct its international affairs in consonance with the accepted principles of public international law and diplomacy, in a manner consistent with the national interest of Ghana. And that's where I emphasize. In a manner consistent with the national interest of Ghana.
Now hold it there. I'm sorry. Let's go listen to Kweku Asometreme, some sort of reaction he had to give about this, and here also Ambassador Gbeho. They are just a few. Ambassador Gbeho is just one of many who have expressed disquiet and disgust, and have to say that this was such a betrayal of the sovereignty of Ghana, and this discretion was so wrongly exercised on the part of government. Let's listen to them. We'll come back and hear Sami on the point of international relations per constitution.
I know, and I've been briefed, that Aisha Huang was not part of the discussion and the people they met in China talking about this loan. And we did not sacrifice her or exchange her for the loan. No government official thought of shielding her. No government official pampered her.
I think that the judgment of the government in letting the lady go is questionable, and no one better than the government itself should be able to answer to it. There is no agreement, as far as I am concerned, between Ghana and China that a criminal or someone who has committed criminal offense like that should be let go in order to advance political interest. That is a very bad precedent, and mustn't happen to prevalence. No, especially when it involves crime against the state, as this lady was doing in Ghana. And, it also indirectly holds our courts to ridicule, If you continue with that, all I can say is that you weaken law and order.
Right, so you were making the point from a constitutional point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. So I was proceeding on the basis that in all of our dealings, within the realms of international relations, foreign affairs, diplomacy, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, which we are all under, enjoins us to act in the national interest. We all accept that in this matter, the national interest has been sacrificed. The national interest as regards our sovereignty, as regards our laws, as regards our resources, our environment. I mean, if you look at all the reports, the Ghana Water Company, for example, has stated clearly that in the next 20 years, if things continue at this rate, they will have to import water. We will not have water. And we all know that water is life. Without water, we will not be alive. And we have read reports from the United Nations about how in the next half a century, there will be world wars over water. We are blessed to have water bodies, and we are destroying those water bodies. Then there is also the aspect to do with this lady and her impunity. I have listened to her field engineer. She was on this same network. He was on this same network, a gentleman called Christian Adokufo. And I mean, you get chills when you listen to him, how this lady, in the full glare of her workers, shot and killed a Ghanaian. So apart from the destruction that she has caused to our environment, apart from polluting our water bodies and all of its ramifications, we are also dealing with somebody who has questions to answer about taking human life. And one wonders, why would such a person, a high-profile prosecution of this nature, why will our government file a nolle prosequi? Why will our government discontinue the trial? That is why I belong to the school of thought and all of those who have argued strongly that the Osafo Maafo statement is not a gaffe. The senior minister, Osafo Maafo, only put out what is obvious. Osafo Maafo is not the Attorney General who filed the nolle prosequi. Osafo Maafo is not the Interior Minister or the National Security Minister who processed Aisha Huang for deportation. Because we know that for deportation to take place, to be effected, you don't just show up at the airport and say, I want to be deported. There ought to be a deportation order. And officials must, high-ranking officials must process you. So this is a government conduct. You put the statements aside and look at the facts, the filing of the nolle prosequi, the deportation and all of that. And we all know that under Article 88 of this Constitution, I mean, people speak as though the Attorney General could just have filed this nolle prosequi without conferring with the President. If you look at the way our Constitution defines the role of the Attorney General, Article 88.1 says there shall be an Attorney General of Ghana who shall be a Minister of State and the principal legal advisor to the government. 2, the Attorney General shall discharge such other duties of a legal nature as may be referred or assigned to him by the President or imposed on him by this Constitution or any other law. I have been in government before for 8 years. Such a high-profile prosecution. I cannot for the life of me imagine that an Attorney General would, on her own volition, go file a nolle prosequi, go discontinue such a case without clearance, without sanctioning from the President. And to the extent that that has been done, and there is no punishment whatsoever, no reprimand whatsoever, clearly this was a government position, a government action. Perhaps the senior minister, the Honorable Osafo Maafo, was not supposed to let the cat out of the bag in the manner in which he did. Now, as we speak, you have the senior minister's statement standing. He has not recanted.
The Lance Minister says, what you hear, okay, they don't specifically speak to Osafo Maafo, either to seem to refute, rebut, or dissociate themselves with that statement, but you hear persons in government speaking tell a different story or deny that she was not prosecuted or deported for the reasons that Osafo Maafo suggests.
Yes.
You don't want to believe Asuma Chairman, you don't want to believe him.
You see,
that in all the discussions, Aisha Huang was never, mentioned, didn't feature in all of the discussions for the loan and all of that. Don't call it a loan, really. It's a butter.
The butter. Now, Samson, you are asking me to believe the Honorable Asuma Chairman. Why should I believe him and not believe the Honorable Osafo Maafo, or vice versa? Why should I believe the Honorable Osafo Maafo and not believe? So, as a citizen, I'm confused. And you see, both cabinet ministers cannot be right. One must be telling us some falsehood. That's the logical deduction. Honorable Osafo Maafo cannot be right, and Honorable Asuma Chairman can also not be right at the same time. One of them is clearly telling us an untruth. And to the extent that the Honorable Osafo Maafo sought to even defend on his senior minister's Facebook page, in a defense which was even more offensive and more outrageous. And he has not denied, he has not recanted. And you notice that the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, the Honorable Asuma Chairman, shies away from mentioning the senior minister's name directly. Now, as we speak, you have a situation where the Lands and Natural Resources Minister is asked directly. Journalists asked him, a pointed question. Okay, so can we now know the reason? We all recognize that the Attorney General has that discretionary power, though we know that under Article 296, discretionary power ought to be exercised in a very, candid and fair, balanced manner. You cannot be capricious and whimsical about it. And that discretionary power must not also be exercised at the detriment or to the detriment of our national interest.
In fact, there are scholars who now say, including judges in this country, who are also writers of judicial legal text, who say that the position that the exercise of nulli prosequi is not subject to questioning is not one that we must continue to respect.
Interesting.
On the basis of Article 21, 1F, the citizen's right to information, it is part of the reason we can even demand for that information, and they must feel an obligation to explain where it is necessary. And it also informs why when we pass the OSP bill, OSP Act, the Special Office of Special Prosecutor Act, he's been given the same powers to exercise nulli prosequi, but he must explain why he exercises that power, unlike the Attorney General.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
296 says it's the exercise of a discretion, and she is not a judge, so she must explain the principles.
Right.
Very, very, very interesting, something. And thank you very much for that. So, you see something. We are talking about a matter which is so delicate. Look, we all cherish Ghana-China relations. We date way back since 1960 when Ghana-China relations was firmly established by our first president. Indeed, at the time, the United Nations had cause to even take out China. Osafo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah led the international community for China's reinstatement. And since then, we've seen the gratitude of China, right from the National Theater Project to the Foreign Affairs building, to the Defense Ministry building, the Buidam Project, and all of that. But as Paul Kagame said recently, the reason why African nations have been moving from the West to the East is because Africa-China relations has been seen more as a relation of equals in terms of all of us, respecting each other. A relationship based on mutual respect. Unlike earlier Euro-Africa relations, which was, if you like, more meddlesome and a lot of conditionalities and all of that. So, to the extent that after all of these gains, we have a situation where our government feels so obliged that because of $2 billion, which, remind you, is not a gift, as though if it was even a gift, this will be right. It will not be right. It will not be conscionable. It will not be acceptable. But we are giving them our bauxite. So we are giving them our bauxite. They are paying for the bauxite. We are told it's a barter arrangement. Why do we have to add this lady? Now, something, I have been looking at some matters to do with China and how they enforce their laws. I have this story here by the deputy ambassador, Ghana's deputy ambassador to China, Dr. Charles Jomina. It says 5 Ghanaians arrested in China weekly for illegal work or overstay. And this story is available on Ghana Web. Ghana's deputy ambassador to China, Dr. Charles Jomina, has revealed that an average of 5 Ghanaians were arrested every week by the Chinese authorities for illegal employment and for overstaying in the year 2018, and that majority of those arrested were students. Addressing Ghanaian students at the 2018 Afishapa dinner organized by the Beijing chapter of NUCS, China, a body I was present some years ago. On the 29th of December 2018 in Beijing, Dr. Jomina, who was a special guest of honor, advised the students to desist from engaging in any form of employment, as it is illegal for students to work in China. So this is the situation. You have here another story which says that there are currently 4,000 Nigerians in Chinese jails, 800 South Africans. There are tens of thousands of Africans in Chinese jails. They enforce their laws. They don't joke about that. And The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, 1961, allows nations to do that. I mean, because these are matters to do with sovereignty. Economic considerations should not hamper you from enforcing your laws. Then I remember in 2015, when I was at the Ministry of Education, there was a very sad story. A Ghanaian who was married to a Chinese woman, they had 3 children. The Ghanaian community petitioned as a Ghanaian community in China, Ministry of Education, because apparently he had been illegally giving entry and exit certificates to Ghanaian students. And they thought that we could intervene in diplomatic realms. We could not. That gentleman was jailed for 3 years. The High People's Court of the Guangdong province sentenced him to 3 years imprisonment on the 25th of August 2015. We could not intervene. So when it comes to China enforcing their laws, they do not spare anybody.
Well, the ambassador has told us that, look, just enforce your laws.
Yeah.
We will not support wrong. And the example of what happened in Tanzania about the Ivory Queen is classic.
Yeah.
She's been jailed for 15 years. And Beijing supports the jailing.
So I have something. I have the permission of my party leadership to announce today that a future NDC government will trigger extradition processes for Aisha Huang.
To be brought back?
To be brought back to face our laws, to be prosecuted in Ghana. Yes, and I have the full backing of our flag bearer to make this announcement this morning.
You don't appreciate that that's going to be very difficult to get? Once he's out of this country,
we will pursue it. And listening to the ambassador, my very good friend, I mean, he clearly is not happy with all of this.
You suspect that China will support you to look for Aisha Huang if she will be within the Chinese state?
The Chinese state, yes.
And then their court will make an order for her to be brought back to Ghana.
We believe so. Remember that in the Tanzanian case, the Chinese government officially put out a statement because she was a high-profile lady. She was vice president of the China-Tanzania, commerce bloc. And they put out a statement endorsing the prosecution and the final sentence.
And this position of the minority, this position of the minority that you announce of a future NDC government, what's it supposed to achieve?
It's supposed
She's brought back, prosecuted.
Yes, because now we are hearing that they are even murder
jailed.
Yes, because we are hearing that apart from all her illegal mining offenses, there is also the case of murder
or more,
as Christian Adokufo.
Okay, but we had heard
we do not want the impression created that Ghana is such a banana republic that you can come in, kill our people.
But we heard your spokesperson on legal and constitutional matters, Osafo, say that you will be triggering the process as in Article 82 to pass a motion of censure on him, which will then trigger a possibility of him resigning or the president sacking him. What happened to that one? As in Osafo Maafo?
Yes.
Or you are doing all of these?
Yes, that's all of it. That is a suggestion that has been made strongly, and we are considering it. Remember that we have a 1-week recall. It's not clear. We're yet to see the full agenda for this recall. We do not know if between Monday and Friday we can initiate some of these processes. But we have a caucus meeting on Monday, and I'm sure that we'll firm up our position. My view, the view I take, is that we will be missing the point if we singled out Osafo Maafo. And I will canvass that view at the caucus meeting. I think that singling out Osafo Maafo creates the impression that, okay, it was not government position. It was Osafo Maafo who goofed. Osafo Maafo went astray. I take a different view, and on that score, I disagree with my senior, the Honorable Osafo said that. Look, so let's look at it as a governmental position, and let's compel government.
Do you think that if they pursued this vote of censure in Osafo Maafo, by Article 82, do you think that they will get the support to do that? The Constitution, the provision says that Parliament may, by a resolution supported by the votes of not less than two-thirds of all members of Parliament, pass a vote of censure on a Minister of State. A motion for the resolution referred to in Clause 1 of this article shall not be moved in Parliament unless A, 7 days notice has been given of the motion, and B, the notice for the motion has been signed by not less than 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. Clause 3, the motion shall be debated in Parliament within 14 days after the receipt by the Speaker of the notice for the motion. 4, a Minister of State in respect of whom a vote of censure is debated under Clause 3 of this article is entitled during the debate to be heard in his defense. And finally, 5, where a vote of censure is passed against a minister under this article, the President, check the words, may, unless the minister resigns his office, revoke his appointment as a minister. So the question to you is, will they get the needed support? Not less than 2/3. And they also, before that, to even move and argue the motion, they will need not less than 1/3 to sign.
Who said Tria?
That's a good one.
You know, a censure is a trial.
Yeah.
You have an accuser, and then you can speak in your defense. The jury is Parliament. The whole world, no censure succeeds if you are in a minority. However, people still proceed on censures because they are not interested in the outcome. They are interested in the process.
Or making the statement.
Yeah. So, as for chance of success, forget it. But as to whether they can do it or attempt it or go through the process, you know, and also give them the opportunity to lay out the accusation. You know, it's just like what we do in court. When, you know, you have a case to answer or you are writing your defense, you put in everything, including things that don't matter, because it's a public document, then the whole matter is out. So the short answer is that there is no chance of that happening. But they might just as well do it and just to make the statement. I think we...
Does it matter to you that our Parliament has no such history?
Yeah, it matters
of exercise of Article 83.
It matters to me. And I've asked that it be done before, because in the past, it happens to have been in the NDC time. There were grievous, you know, infractions by, you know, ministers and certain people. And I thought that, look, I really think what we are missing in our politics is a strong Parliament.
Yeah.
Which is why I am dead set against the 50% of ministers coming from Parliament. It's the first thing I want us to
No, but
amend.
you, just 1 second. Where do you get your confidence that you can trigger Article 82 and get the needed numbers to make it happen?
It's really about the statement we want to make. And you see, there's also this issue of colleagues conferring with you, colleagues on the other side, conferring with you privately and saying that, yeah, no, this has embarrassed all of us, it's not good.
But you know they will not vote for you.
Yeah, but when it comes to voting,
it's a system.
like the recent,
okay,
the recent Bono East regional
So I'm
ministers
talking about
issue,
a strong Parliament. Imagine this, where if you go to Parliament, you can only be a parliamentarian. You have no chance of being a minister. And you can only assert yourself as a parliamentarian. That will give teeth to our Parliament. So indeed, if our Parliament seizes some of these powers that they potentially have, they will really be a bulwark for the advancement of our democracy. So I really believe Parliament must once in a while exercise its muscles in these areas. In this particular instance, not against my uncle.
Okay.
I doubt it will work.
I see. But listen to Occupy Ghana. Occupy Ghana issued a statement this week on this particular subject. And listen to what they had to say, and let's hear your conclusions on what Occupy Ghana is saying. Occupy Ghana, by the way, is the pressure group by whose, you know, activities our Auditor General now has teeth to bite, and this country is being saved a whole lot of money. Well, Occupy Ghana said, They titled the statement, Occupy Ghana disappointed by senior minister's comments regarding Aisha Huang. Occupy Ghana is highly disappointed by the recent reported utterances of Senior Minister Osafo Maafo at a town hall meeting in the United States. We are dismayed by the minister's attempt to water down government's abysmal use of its discretion with respect to the deportation of Chinese galamsey queen Aisha Huang, who was on trial for her illegal mining operations in Ghana. As a leading member of government, the senior minister's attempt to justify the lack of prosecution of Aisha Huang on the basis of Ghana's relationship with China and the prospect of receiving $2 billion under the Sinohydro bauxite project is distasteful and disrespectful to all of us in the Republic who have worked hard to bring about an end to the illegal mining activities. They indict government in this statement. Listen, the senior minister's comments make a complete mockery of the fight against galamsey and the critical steps government and the coalition against galamsey have taken to address this issue. This statement suggests that at the right price tag, foreigners implicated in the appalling desecration of Ghana's environment, rivers and laws can be exonerated. It positions foreigners who break or flout our laws as untouchable and above the law because their countries offer economic partnerships and benefits. It sacrifices the enforcement of our laws and the safeguarding of our environmental resources on the cheap altar of present gain. We note that far from expecting their nationals to be exonerated from criminal activities abroad, China dissociates itself from their actions in similar matters. In Tanzania, as reported by international media, for example, notorious Chinese ivory queen Yang Fenglan, involved in the illegal trading of elephant tusks, was prosecuted and handed a jail sentence of 15 years in February 2019. The ruling was supported by Beijing, and the Chinese government apparently refused to extend any help or support to this Chinese native. Occupy Ghana has followed keenly the unfortunate resurgence in galamsey. Please note, the unfortunate resurgence in galamsey activities and the continued destruction of Ghana's forest reserves and water resources. We have also taken due notice of government's slow work at unraveling the issues and exacting justice for this country from government appointees fingered by investigative journalist Anas Armia Anas for engaging in allegedly corrupt practices that have undermined the fight against illegal mining. In this light, we are dumbfounded to have learned of the discontinuation of Aisha Huang's prosecution and her subsequently swift deportation that has deprived and denied this country of its due justice. We infer from all that has gone on before that government did not intend for Aisha Huang to answer to the laws of this country. Government's reluctance to hold the galamsey queen accountable reared its head when the charge sheet in the case of Republic versus Huang and 4 others, then they quote the case number, dated whatever, laid and filed against the accused persons that did not match the severity of the act of employing or being employed illegally at a small-scale mining site. It was only when Occupy Ghana objected strongly in a petition dated the 16th of May 2017 to the Office of the Attorney General that her charge sheet was amended. In our petition, we requested the Attorney General to slap Aisha Huang with charges under Section 99 of the Minerals and Mining Act. Under that act, she, a foreigner, would have attracted a maximum fine of 3.6 million Ghana cedis and or a maximum jail term of 20 years upon conviction. We disagree vehemently with the senior minister's unfounded declaration that making Ms. Huang face the full wrath of Ghanaian law would have had no economic benefits. 3.6 million Ghana cedis could do more for a robust emergency response system than letting her off the hook. unless the senior minister somehow believes, in spite of government's own concessions to the Sinohydro project, that the Chinese facility is offered to Ghana under philanthropic conditions. Then they have a final page. All they are asking for is that this is so wrong, government must dissociate itself and some action must be taken against him.
And I associate myself with that sentiment. Indeed, when they say they are disappointed, truth is, I think that if Dr. Osafo Maafo had the chance, he will not say the things he said. Okay, so in terms of being disappointed...
He told you that?
No, I said I think.
You think, okay.
That given all that has happened, I think that if he had the...
Giving the statement issued on his website, you still think the way you think?
So let me explain. You see, the big issue here is separating what Osafo Maafo said from government position. Clearly, he did not say it was government position. One. Number two, government has come out to say...
Sorry, he was there doing a government job.
I agree, and we all appreciate that, and those
he didn't have
are
to
valid.
say, I'm speaking for government.
So I'm saying something. So government has come out to say, this is not our position. All right?
Have they said so?
Oh, I think the essence of what Asuma Chema was saying, and I think he said it, was that this is not our position. So really, it's tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Is it or is it not? As for disappointment, look, we are all disappointed. And honestly, I have made the point.
Why is the government at labor to make an emphatic, categorical statement?
So I don't advise
rebutting his comments and dissociating itself from the comments.
That for me is the central issue. I don't advise government, but I think one of the ways to make this go away is for them to call my uncle into a room and say, we are going to excoriate you. And then come out and give him a tongue lashing. Because my uncle is an engineer, and they deal with metals and things, they build things. So they don't always process their words in finesse. And I'm not speaking for him. I'm just saying this is why it may have happened. And I have said that maybe if he has the chance, he won't say the same thing. Your question is valid. And that is what I think my position is, that government should come out clearly, distance itself clearly. And so much America seems to be doing that.
Have you heard suggestions that is not possible? What pressure groups like OccupyGhana is looking for? It's not possible because, quote unquote, Osafo Maafo is de facto prime minister.
You know, all these things, we can throw them up in the air, but I think the substantive issue is that the woman is gone. A senior person has suggested the reasons. The government says these are not the reasons. There is what is said and then there is what is done. Worry, however, is that, look, the nolle prosequa is final. You can't bring her back on the same charges, except on some other charges. Yeah. And if
now there's a meta angle, so
yeah, the meta. So what I'm going to say is that if the minority decides to bring her back, and you were asking all the questions about whether it will come back, and I asked who said Tria, they will just be making a statement. What is crucial is we make a determination in this country that whoever we find doing things like what Aisha Huang has done will spend time in our jails. Okay, beating ourselves up on Aisha Huang, maybe we should do it. But I'm wondering what practical use there is to it. Maybe you should make the statement you want to make. Maybe the government should consider, call Mr. Osafo Maafo into a room and say, we are going to excoriate you. And then give him the tongue lashing so that we can now put the energies towards the future. Okay, so as for disappointment, I don't think anybody is going to doubt that that was a disappointing performance from somebody who we all say should not be.
Okay, in a minute or two before I get Koku to speak, I've asked this question, and I asked last week to a couple of my guests, we were starting with Sam George, that like Okujeto, he's in Parliament. He knows the Sinohydro project, and he knows that that project is based on certain facts, including acts of Parliament, as in Parliament approving a clear deal. Why are we not able to say, let Osafo Maafo sit somewhere, we can't be bothered by what he said, because the facts as we know, we are not being given the 2 billion as a gift, and that the 2 billion is actually a barter trade. So it could not have been tied to Aisha Huang.
You're perfectly right, and that's what I was saying. That all this is a lot of words up in the air, but the substantive issues, the facts on the ground, the records as we can see them, okay, show that the reason for Aisha Huang leaving is not so. So it's the symbolism around it. So you are right. They are in Parliament. They know how we got it. We've done a lot of work on the Sinohydro deal. And you call it butter, we call it a loan. Okay.
The World Bank says it's not a loan.
No, the World Bank says it does not count. Yeah, so it's the same point I'm making.
Okay.
That there are so many things to talk about in this one. Now we've added this. Substantive issues are there. We can focus on them. Okay. As for these things, it happens to just hurt our feelings as a nation. And I think we should just resolve that going forward, we will not do this again.
Okay, so Kweku, I decided to get to you last because you had such good opportunity last week. I'm sure you spoke your heart out on this matter, and actually you reprimanded Osafo Maafo. You said it was a difficult thing for you to do, but you went ahead to do it. There are senior citizens, including Samuel Kujeto, who, you know, advocate of the Supreme Court and is a member of the Council of State, and of course is known to belong to this governing party, who have said, well, even that exercise of discretion by the Attorney General was poor. Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I heard him. But we had dealt with that issue long ago. Of course, Mr. Osafo Maafo's gaffe, which I insist it is, has brought it back to the front burner in a way. But otherwise, we dealt with it. I remember the media coalition against Galamsey, when the Nolly prosecutor was fired, actually wrote to ask questions.
They filed a petition.
They did. And then subsequent to theirs, other groups and commentators, including some of us, we all expressed concern and actually criticized it, knowing that the AG was not obliged to give us a reason, even though we are now being told perhaps what we should do is to grow a culture of demanding explanations. And we all know where to go if we want to grow that culture. You can't sit on radio and TV and just lament and agitate. It won't happen.
But advocacy is also important.
Oh, yes.
Because it is taking that it is because of this that the advocacy that when Marita Brew entered a Nolly prosecutor, of course, that was not much of a matter of consequence to government. She came and gave the reason publicly about the KKD matter.
Yes, you should know. I'm part of that culture. Okay. So creating a critical mass of people who believe that we ought to challenge that thing, it's important. But bottom line, you cure the mischief only in an appropriate forum, which we all know. And we have many people. You were just talking about OccupyGhana and the Auditor General. Right. And Kofi Dem also did some, is it an election committee?
Citizen Ghana.
Citizen Ghana, you know.
The buzz branding.
Yes, buzz branding, and then even the Electoral Commission in terms of...
Yes.
The EC, political parties.
So that's what we should be doing. I mean, the Constitution is there. It's provided all those rights and opportunities. But if you don't operationalize them through agitation, it won't happen in advocacy. It will never happen. So I'm with it. And I think some of us will have to get together and begin to think if we can't come together and do that kind of advocacy. So why are we back to this issue? It's because of Mr. Osafo Maafo's gaffe at the town hall somewhere in the US. Otherwise, the matter had died, a natural death of a sort. But here we are back. It's difficult. You see, his continued silence for me, I'm not talking of somebody saying something on his behalf on Facebook. Mr. Osafo Maafo's continued silence is what is worrying me. He would have helped himself if he had come to do a clarification that would involve a retraction and an apology. Because, you see, government is now walking a tightrope. Very difficult.
No, Kweku, you are saying that there is a statement on his official Facebook page, and you say somebody saying something on his behalf. He has not been silent. He has told you that I stand by what I said.
Subsequent to that posting, I think we all came here, we analyzed that thing, and it fell flat. It didn't have any substance. It didn't have any integrity. So that was why he had to come back. And I thought if he had come back, we would not be sitting here looking at some of the aspects of the cases.
Is it because it's Osafo Maafo? The secretary to the Interministerial Committee on Galamsey said that prosecuting Aisha Huang was an expensive enterprise. We're wasting money. We didn't take him to...
people took him on. People took him on.
This March?
No, because who is he?
Ghana media does 1 week and the matter is over.
No, but who is he or what is he compared to Osafo Maafo?
Okay.
It's an unknown quantity.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. Osafo Maafo is a different weight. So that's where the focus is.
All right.
And I sincerely believe that if he had spoken subsequent to all the noise and said, look, countrymen and women, I got it wrong here. Perhaps I was trying to explain it in this or that way. It was unsustainable. Forgive me. We'll proceed. We'll move on.
Some will still reject that kind of apology
least,
and say that
he should resign.
He spoke because, like the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth spoke.
Yes.
That's what happened.
You are speculating. That's conjecture. That's speculation. It may be logical. It may have some substance. But it's not the evidence.
Predetermined template. If he apologizes today, you'll hear starting with the opposition.
I know people who
that
failed.
You spoke the truth. What are you apologizing
I know people who failed and refused to apologize. Politicians on certain gaps, and they lived with it till they died.
Okay.
You remember Victor Usu's gaffe on inward-looking people from the Volta region?
Yeah.
Go and check the Hansard. Yeah. You will see why he said so. It was in response to something that Agama was saying. And Victor Usu thought, look, stop there, let me clear the air. But in the process, he committed a certain gaffe because of that ethnocentric element he brought to bear. Because Agama too was talking some ethnocentrism. Was saying that, look, you are victimizing Fantis, you are victimizing Gans, and you are victimizing Ewes, Apollo 568. So in the intensity of the debate, Victor did the intervention and then went in the same direction. We all forgot what Agama was saying, which also was potentially ethnocentric, without any evidence to give. But everybody went for Victor. And he was asked, apologize, retract, apologize. He never did. Subsequent elections, it kept on affecting his political tradition. So sometimes these things, you do it and you are purged of that lasting effect. But in any case, I am actually intrigued by the new angle that my brother Sami has just disclosed to us, that they are going to file for extradition. That's a mission impossible.
In addition to triggering Article 82.
That's a distinct matter. But the extradition thing is a long shot.
It's not impossible. It's difficult, but it's not impossible.
It's a mission impossible. Who Chinese are going to collaborate with you on that, to bring their citizen back? They will ask you questions. You see, Aisha, for me, has a certain unique characteristics. My own angle. This is a very personal thing. And that is why I was disappointed when the prosecution didn't get to its logical conclusion. I thought it would have had a certain snowballing effect, a ripple effect. So I make Aisha a special case. But otherwise, the Chinese, when you put this before them, you are going to bring in the murder. You've forgotten. Many Chinese were arrested in the mines, some for murder. And it's all here. The Ghana police have the records. But they were deported immediately. The immigration service, and this was their PRO, he tells us, apparently in the law, if you opt for voluntary... We're
talking about in excess of 500 or 5,000 of them?
5,000 were deported in June 2013, July 2013. 4,592 were deported. It's a subculture, but we are told by, is it PAM 30? This is 11 June 2013, that the 202 Chinese who were being processed had voluntarily asked to be sent home. And he says it's part of the immigration practice globally. So we decided to send them home. And not just this, in their thousands. So in actual fact, the Chinese are aware. And some of those people had not, some had committed murder. The Ghana police is aware, they have the records. Because they are always armed. Yeah.
But Aisha was significant for good reasons.
That is why
because she brought in methods of galamsey that that brought the distraction so quick and fast
Yes,
to
but
us.
every murder is murder.
Yeah.
The crime.
Yeah.
So whether you're a big man or a small man, if you commit murder, you've committed murder.
Right.
And I'm saying that the Chinese would be looking at all those things. That some of our people who were brought were not doing just illegal mining, but in the process committed murder. And you brought them to us. So why are we going to discriminate and give you Aisha? They would never give you Aisha.
It's worth pursuing.
Okay.
Aisha is special.
So, you know,
it's
for a certain soundbite. It's for a certain political capital, which my brothers are seeking to attain.
Will those
It's a worthless
clamoring
cause.
civil society, will they get what they're asking?
What is it that they are asking?
Something to be done to the minister and for government to clearly dissociate itself.
Last week I made it clear here. I'm not one of those seeking Osafo Maafo's resignation or dismissal. It's unfortunate. I'm not able to do so. But I'm one of those who believe that he should retract and apologize. The delay in it is creating more integrity challenges for him and may eventually make an apology look redundant. It's unfortunate.
If retraction and apology is sufficient, you know, purgation, so to speak, then
you know why? Because he didn't tell. Look,
deportation of the one who committed the crime is also equally okay.
Osafo Maafo did not tell the truth. Perhaps I have to be more emphatic. Relative to the Sinohydro thing, the linkage was porous, non-existent. Indeed, people have forgotten, much earlier, in 2017, these matters came up when Dr. Baumia and his delegation went to China and came back with the package about some 15 billion. The matter came up then. Questions were raised. And Dr. Baumia extensively, answered those questions. I put more premium on what the vice president said then than what the senior minister is saying now. In any case, those who are aware, who know what went into the Sinohydro deal, will tell you that there was no element of Aisha.
And the facts are
it wasn't there. And because I know it wasn't there, I cannot sit here and say Osafo Maafo spoke the truth. He did not.
It wasn't stating government position.
Okay, so we take a break here. We return to look at the tardy girls who are still missing or rescued. We're asking whose reports we should believe. We'll be right back.